My life would be perfect if I could just take care of this whole infidelity thing. Everything was fine, and then this infidelity thing, it just knocked me off, and I just want to get back to it because then everything is going to be fine. If you have ever thought that, then this show is absolutely 100% for you. Today, we are going to talk about nervous system regulation. We are going to talk about all the things that are wearing you down, stressing you out, and causing you to just feel like a cat with her claws out. My guest today is Laurie James, and she is a certified somatic practitioner and life coach who specializes in somatic and body-based modalities, including so many different things that she's going to talk to you about today. But I recently had the opportunity to be a guest on her show, and I think it was just one of those magic moments where it was like, oh my gosh, we're speaking each other's language. And I knew you all had to hear from her. So, welcome to the show, Lori. I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. No, there was definitely a connection right off the bat. And oh my God, you have such great energy too. And so your listeners are very lucky. And I'm so excited to dive into this conversation and share what I know about nervous system regulation and healing trauma and
Yeah.
all the joys and all the muck that we're in
Exactly.
or have been in and got
Right.
out. And now we're helping others do it.
Exactly. Let's start just kind of with the basics because I feel
Yeah.
like nervous system regulation is kind of a buzz phrase. And we're all like, yeah, I got
Yes.
to regulate my nervous system. Yep. How's your, what does
Yeah.
that even mean?
People are doing it. Well, so I'd love to actually start with a story, if I may, about what happened, because I think through story, people will understand a little bit more. And then I will go into the definition of what somatic experiencing is,
Yeah.
because it's all related, right? So I went through a divorce. I wrote about it at the tail end of my book, spoiler alert, which is Sandwiched, a memoir of holding on and letting go, about the sandwich generation and about my introspective journey through a long 8 year period of time in my life. But at the end of that book, I fell very ill.
Hmm.
And I ended up in the hospital twice within a 2 week period of time. And the doctors could not figure out what was wrong with me. And if we backtrack 2 weeks prior to all that happening, I was walking with two friends and I said, everything is really good, but I'm stressed and I don't know how to back out of it.
Yeah.
Right. My nervous system was very dysregulated. I had lived in a very dysregulated, my world was very dysregulated because I was caring for elderly parents for 10 years. My marriage was falling apart. I had been raising 10, not 10 kids, sorry, not 10 kids, but four felt like 10 sometimes. And I was a doer. I got shit done, but at the expense, my own expense. And so my body shut down in that period because I didn't know how to back out of what was going on inside. So, and doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I had all kinds of weird ailments like fluid around my lungs. I had migrating arthritis, these like hot spots, severe pain in my lower back that caused vertigo. They were chasing my symptoms, low oxygen level, anemic, low blood pressure. I kept passing out. That was my body slowly shutting down.
Yeah.
Because what happens is I was even further above my sympathetic nervous system and up at what we call dorsal vagal. And that's when we shut down. So I eventually was diagnosed with an unnamed virus of the migrating arthritis. I had not done any somatic work. I was in tune with my body and had done some energy work and was writing my book, which was very cathartic. And I was working with a talk therapist, but I hadn't done a lot of body work like yoga and
Right.
some meditation and those types of things, some spirituality around being more present and, Eckhart Tolle and all that. But when I got well enough, which was a couple months because I couldn't do anything for 2 weeks, and news alert listeners, don't let your body fall to the level that mine
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Warning, meow, meow.
Yeah.
Um, so when I was well enough and I was able to drive, I started working with a somatic practitioner that a therapist friend referred me to. His name is Bob.
Mhm.
Really great guy. He was a therapist and a somatic experiencing practitioner. So, what is somatic experiencing? Somatic comes from the Greek word soma, which means body.
Yes.
Experiencing, it's experiencing the body. What is happening inside our body? Because what happens, our society has not taught us how to complete the fight, flight, or freeze response that our bodies naturally do and has kept us alive for all these years,
Yeah.
right? And we don't want to and we have overridden them so that energy stays stuck in our nervous system and
Hmm.
can wreak havoc on our bodies. And first, it is in the term of, it shows up as unease in our body. So that could be like a restriction in the chest or, that gut
Yeah.
restriction or churning or tightness in the shoulders. Then it turns into unease in the body, could be joint pain, it could be IBS, chronic
Mhm.
symptoms, because when your nervous system is in a constant state of stress, or what we call the sympathetic nervous system, it is constricted. And then eventually it goes up into dorsal vagal, which is shutdown, which is what I happen to sadly experience.
Hmm.
And I tell you, the first year that I worked with this somatic practitioner and therapist, I did more healing in that year than I did 5.5 years of talk therapy.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So the more, and the nervous system they're afferent. So 80% of our sensory information travels from our body up to our brain. Only 20% travels from our brain to our body. So yes, affirmations are important. Yes, mindfulness work is important, but until you can really start connecting with your body,
Hmm.
and we'll talk later about how to do that, that's when the real healing happens.
Yes.
Nervous system regulation and body-based healing is the foundation, in my opinion, of all healing.
Yes. I 100% agree with you because we are bodies. We
Mhm.
are bodies. We live inside our body, whether you think it's the soul or just, magnetic
Yeah,
energy or whatever, we are in this body. And when you talk about what is somatic experiencing, it's experiencing having a body
yeah.
and
And
being
it's
aware of that.
experiencing also the emotions, right?
Yes.
We are human beings and we are emotional beings.
Hmm.
And our society has also taught us not to feel.
Yes.
And our parents and whether it's the way you were raised or our society. And when we don't feel and we shove stuff down, which I did a lot of in my marriage, which I'm
Mhm.
also divorced for all you women. And I experienced betrayal in a very severe way, which wasn't infidelity, but it felt equal to, and I even said in therapy when we were in couples therapy, this is just as bad to me as infidelity.
Yes. Yeah.
But I didn't
Because,
leave
right. But
because
it's
it wasn't infidelity.
right, right. But betrayal is betrayal. It's that,
Yeah.
yeah, it hurts the body.
Yeah.
And, when you're talking about we are emotional beings and it doesn't always feel good to feel,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, emotion, when we feel, it is like physical pain. You
It is.
experience physical pain. And here's one of the beautiful things, and the other thing I want to talk about, just briefly, about somatic experiences. So the program I was trained under was by Peter Levine. He is the creator of somatic experiencing. It's a 3-year program. If somebody's somatic informed, there's a lot of people that are using the word somatic and nervous system regulation, and they don't necessarily know what they're doing.
Yes.
And so whether you work with me or you work with Laura or you work with somebody else, if you're listening, make sure that they have been trained in a well-respected program. I just want to say it because somatic and nervous system regulation is buzzword right now and it's getting thrown out all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm
I
so
do,
glad. Yeah. So
yeah,
glad that you said that because, yes, can we do things on our own? Yes. Can well-meaning people help us? Yes. But at the same time, we need to be careful with ourselves. We need to be careful
yeah.
with our bodies. We need to be careful with our emotions. We don't want to be pushed somewhere where we're not ready to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why also, in the somatic world and coaching, we process in small doses.
Hmm.
Sometimes we talk about just touching the edges of that. If it feels too big or too overwhelming
Hmm.
for, when I'm working with my clients, if it feels, because we don't want to overwhelm the nervous system, because if we overwhelm the nervous system, then we're re-traumatizing the
Yes.
individual, and we don't want that. So if we just touch the edges or just go into it a little bit, and that's why healing is a process and it takes time to heal because we want to do it in small, tolerable doses or steps.
Yes. And I love that word tolerable because wherever you are at right now, you've been through some stuff. You will
Yeah.
continue to go through some stuff.
Yeah.
And finding that tolerable is how do I feel okay in my everyday life without numbing out and without pushing
Yeah.
myself to that place of shutdown. And yeah, it's sometimes a never ending, how do I feel right now? How do I feel right now? What do I need right
hmm
now? What do I need right now?
Sometimes it's like a minute by minute. Like when I was in my shit and healing and what I write about in my book. I mean, sometimes it was like, what do I need to do to get through this hour? What do I need to get through this day? What do I need to do to get through this week?
Hmm.
Especially when you're in it and you're dealing with betrayal and you're dealing with your current or soon to be ex spouse and you've got kids and you've got family that you're taking care of and you've working, it is a lot.
Yes, it is. And when you talk about nervous system regulation, like what it really means is not being perfect 24/7. It doesn't mean, well, if I have a regulated nervous system, I'll be able to handle everything all the time. To me, and I want your opinion on this, but to me, nervous system regulation really is about that awareness. And sometimes I go into it and sometimes I go out of it, but I try to at least be aware of I'm losing it and what can
Yeah.
I do to bring myself back?
Right. So, yes, 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 yes. And so, um, within within somatic experiencing and nervous system regulation, this actually stems a little bit more from polyvagal theory,
Hmm.
but we have three different parts of our nervous system. We have our ventral vagal, we have our sympathetic, and then we have our dorsal vagal. So ventral vagal is like our parasympathetic. That is joy, when we can be present. That's, when we feel grounded, when we feel curious and compassion and mindful, right? That is, we also call that our parasympathetic or rest and digest state. Then we have the next level is our sympathetic. That's when we're in fight, flight. And there's obviously various degrees. If somebody cuts you off, on the freeway versus you're fighting for your life or you're fighting to keep somebody else alive. Like, but what happens is when we're more in our sympathetic, we feel more frustration, we feel more irritation, have more fear, panic, rage, anger. Those are the feelings that are associated with it. And then we go up to our dorsal vagal. That's what happened to me, where you shut down, you feel hopeless, you feel trapped, you feel a lot of shame, you feel disassociation, maybe even moving towards depression or numbness. And what's interesting about those three states is our thought patterns
Hmm.
are also very associated that. So with when we're in our ventral vagal and that social engagement, that's our parasympathetic, we feel like I can do this. I'm capable, even though that this is really difficult. I'm going to be okay, even if my world feels like it's going to fall apart. You still
Yeah.
have some curiosity. You feel like you have belonging in a place in the world when we're up in our sympathetic, which is where we're feeling anger, fear, panic, anxiety. You're like, I'm scared to do this. I'm afraid they won't like me. I'm afraid of being rejected. I have to do this now or else I'm not going to be able to sleep.
Hmm.
There isn't enough time. This isn't going to work out. And then when we go up into our dorsal vagal, which is I need to, but I can't. You're more in a free state. I need to, but I
Hmm.
can't. I want to learn, but I can't. I want to lean into this relationship, but I can't. I have to, but I can't. I married the wrong person. No, if I divorce, nobody will want me. Right.
Hmm.
So it's really interesting. The more I've dug into this and through the training, so the key is, even if your life is really challenging and you've got all this stuff going on, it's important to take small opportunities, even if it's 5 minutes twice a day, to just sit with yourself, feel the sensations or emotions, even
Hmm.
if it's just for 5 minutes. And I
Hmm.
have a free guide that's got, they're like little sensation bubbles. So if you're unfamiliar or like, I've never checked in with my body, like I don't know what that is, it's a guide that will help walk you through that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I appreciate that you say just 5 minutes because sometimes when we're in that state, that can feel overwhelming.
yeah,
And it's not even
totally.
necessarily about success or failure because there's times where I've sat there and I'm like, I'm going to do this. And my mind is all over the
Yeah,
place and it's insane. And I
yeah,
think that wasn't successful. But then I always come back to, no, that was successful. It's not about reaching nirvana because I sat there. It's about the practice and the process of
yes,
bringing that all back in. And I felt all that agitation and I
yeah,
felt all that discomfort.
yeah. And this is a practice, just like mindfulness is a practice, just like yoga is a practice. This is a practice. And I don't want somebody to like turn off the recording, like, I can't add one more thing.
Mm-mm.
And here's the thing, is like our nervous system, and we were talking about this before we jumped on, is our our nervous system, the youngest part of our nervous system is 200 million years old,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have the capacity to manage all the sensory information that is thrown at us in our world,
No.
right?
This is a
Between
lot.
social media and our smartphones and Zooming and work and billboards and music and everything, we cannot process everything. I mean, our bodies process a lot more, but that's why it's so important to go for a walk out in nature for 5 minutes, even just to clear your head,
Mhm.
right? Stop and just, this sounds um, so what's the right word? But stop and smell the fucking roses, right?
Yeah.
Like I walk my dog, I have a dog, and I will stop and smell the roses. Use your five senses.
Yeah.
That helps to signal your nervous system, even for that 5 minutes that you're safe. Stop and just watch the breeze blow through a tree or blow through bushes and just stare at it for 5 minutes. We
Mm.
don't do that. We get on our phones immediately.
Yes. Yes. And what I want to say about that is it's not just do it because you're supposed to do it. Do it because it changes the way you process. You become a clearer thinker. You can
Yes.
make better decisions. You feel better. You're not constantly taking Tums or ibuprofen. You're not having the aches and pains. And it's
Right.
not like, oh, I guarantee wellness, but our body does keep the score.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, there's a book that's titled that, which is a
Yep.
great read. Right. Or your shoulders aren't up in your ears constantly.
Yeah.
stop and feel your heartbeat.
Hmm.
You know, have you ever just stopped and like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to notice my heart beating for 2 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And the more that we can do this,
Hmm.
right? The more that we can come up and because we come up into our sympathetic every day, right?
Oh, yeah.
We walk the dog, we go to work, we work out, but to then just come down, and even if it's just sitting in the chair for 5 minutes after your workout or before you jump on a Zoom call or start your day, and then you have lunch, and instead of scrolling on your phone at lunch, can you be present eating your lunch?
Hmm.
Or whoever you're talking to at lunch. And then
Hmm.
in the afternoon, I often will just take a 5-10 minute break in the afternoon, and I'll just lie in my bed and just like feel where the bed is supporting me. And
Yeah.
I can drop into my body, and that helps me to down regulate my
Mm.
nervous system. And what that actually does, if you can take these small pockets, it actually gives you more energy. People think, oh my God, I can't add one more thing in there. But it actually is the opposite,
Yes.
because it builds capacity in the nervous system. So that way you can handle your life with more ease. And
Hmm.
a little more ease, a little bit more joy, a little more presence.
Yeah. Couple of things that I want to follow up on because I
Yeah.
think they're really important to talk about. First of all, is the nervous system can't just rev. We do have capacity, and we also have the capacity to expand that capacity.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge for people to hear. It's not just that I'm a low tolerance person, I can't handle much. We can expand our capacity.
Hmm.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've talked to friends about this, and I'm careful about saying that because
I know.
that can sound overwhelming when you're already overwhelmed. Oh my God, I don't want to add anything else on it. But what if you could just handle the life that you have right now with a little bit more ease
Yeah.
in the body?
Yes.
And things don't feel so overwhelmed, because when you're already running, I call it a treadmill on high, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that was my running joke when I was raising my 4 kids and carrying, I'm like, get me off this treadmill. It's on high and I don't know how to turn it off.
Yes. Yes.
So, but if you can turn it lower and turn it down to walking instead of running, and
Mhm.
slow down throughout the day, then you don't experience that burnout. You don't, because when you're overwhelmed already, and then it's that one little thing, it's all it is the straw, and you're like, I'm gonna fucking kill somebody,
Yeah. Yeah. You're
or
totally.
I'm out of here, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I hear you on like being careful because it's not like this game that now you can be the super woman and do more. It's
Right.
not that. It's you've got a lot going on. We all
Yeah.
have a lot like how can you make this easier?
Yeah. And sometimes that's saying no to things
Yes.
too, right? I mean, I was out 3 nights in a row, which is like so not me. And
Hmm.
then last night I didn't sleep well. And like, because like 2 nights
Yeah.
is like my
It's
max
enough.
now,
Yeah.
because I'm more in tune with my body. I'm more in tune with what I know that I can tolerate and manage without getting overwhelmed,
Hmm.
right? 3 nights has pushed it. Like, I
Yeah.
don't drink.
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
drink very, very little now because, one, I'm older and it affects me differently, but it also affects my nervous system.
Yeah.
And maybe people think, it could be viewed as you're more sensitive. I like to think of it as you're more in tune with your body and what your body really needs.
Hmm.
Because our bodies are always speaking to us.
Yes. It's like body boundaries is how I like to think
Yeah.
about it. My body can't take this. My body doesn't want to
Yeah.
take this, and my body doesn't need to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is, we've got that rest and digest, which doesn't mean that we're not doing anything. It just means that we're in a good state.
Yeah.
Then you talked about going all the way into overwhelm and to shutdown.
Hmm.
And what I want to talk about is how being in shutdown is not rest and digest, and how people can know what is the difference between those two states. Because I think sometimes people get a little confused.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Um, Shutdown basically means that you physically can't, like me, I fell ill. You physically can't do anything. You are so exhausted. You've reached a point of exhaustion, and then you're sleeping. If you're sleeping and you're waking up still exhausted, you're in shutdown. If you have this list to do and you're like, "Oh my God, I have all these things to do and I can't do it," you're up in your dorsal vagal shutdown. If you are numbed out, like you're like, this is happening and I
Okay.
don't feel anything, that means you're up in your dorsal vagal shutdown. When you're in your ventral vagal, you're down in your parasympathetic, you feel and you can feel those emotions. Because here's the thing, we cannot grieve and we cannot process what we're experiencing when we're up in our sympathetic or up in our dorsal vagal. And I'm a classic, like, I took care of my elderly parents for 14 and a half years, and like I'm task oriented. So like when things would go wrong, or whether it was my mom was in the hospital, or when one of my parents died, I was like, okay, I got to do A, B, C, D, and E, right? And once I
Right.
then a week later was when I actually was able to start feeling my emotions, because I was activated to get
Yes.
stuff done up in my sympathetic. And then I came down into my parasympathetic. And that's when I was able to finally, my body felt safe enough to feel and to then start grieving the
Hmm.
loss.
Hmm. And that's normal.
Yes,
That's
it's very normal.
hmm.
But that's the difference,
Hmm.
right? When you can, you want to be, so when you're in your ventral vagal parasympathetic, when you're in your ventral vagal, you can be alone and you can feel okay, or you can be with other people and be okay. When
Yeah.
you're up in your sympathetic and up in your dorsal vagal, you again, it goes to the thoughts of I'm a loser, or I'm lonely, or I don't have a partner and my ex-husband is with somebody, and so
Right.
I'm not, why well, why am I not with somebody,
Mm.
right? And I understand, like, the whole grieving process takes time.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
there's secondary grief and all of that that goes with it, but
Yeah. So when we recognize, okay, I'm out of whack.
yeah,
I'm just somehow I'm out. I can sit for 5 minutes. What are some other things that I can do to maybe start pulling myself back?
yeah,
Because I know for me and for some people, sometimes the more out of it you go, the more you're compartmentalizing and the more you're shutting down,
yeah,
and then it's like I'm not going to rest until this is done, and
yeah.
I'm an achiever, and it's really hard to pull back.
Yeah, it is very hard to pull back. So there's a couple different things. One, and again, this is in my free guide, but
Yeah.
when I first start working with somebody, I always ask them, one of the things that I ask them to do is develop a list of things that that help regulate their nervous system.
Mhm.
So, do you feel better after you go for a walk? 90% of people do, right? If you have a lot of fight in you,
Mhm.
maybe you go do a kickboxing class,
Yeah.
right? And you like the other day, I was, something happened, and I went through a breakup recently. I was with somebody for 3.5 years. I left my marriage 7.5 years ago, but and something happened, and so I was pissed, and so I took these like sand weights, and I, in this exercise class, and I was just throwing them, right?
Yes.
And then, but here's the key: it's throwing it and then tapping into the feeling, the sensations in your body. That's the difference between somatic experiencing and other forms of mindfulness. It's tapping into the sensation. So that could be tightness, that could be restriction, that could be openness. Though that's what is the difference. So, one, the self regulating toolbox. What are the things? Petting your dog,
Mm-hmm.
reading a book.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that can help regulate your nervous system. Sitting and enjoying a cup of coffee in the morning without any interruption, without any social media, and just watching the sunrise, or, those are all examples, and everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
So, put together your own list. One of the places that I always start with, there's two really great exercises. One is, I kind of talked about it, is this we call a stabilization exercise slash grounding. And
Yeah.
it's really just taking a moment, and we can do it right here. Feel the chair underneath you. Feel where the back of your legs are making contact with the chair. Feel where your feet are touching the floor right now. And I don't know about you, but just doing that, I can feel my energy dropping down into the lower part of my body.
Yeah.
I'm not as much in my head,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I feel more grounded. I feel more in my parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
So, and I also have like a little $29 nervous system regulation kit that's got three exercises. For those people who can't connect with their bodies as easily, and because they've lived from their neck up, which a lot of people
Oh, we
do,
do. Yeah.
is taking a moment and also, again, feeling the chair underneath you, but just orienting to your space and just
Yeah.
looking around the room or looking outside a window and noticing and letting your eyes just wander and stop on anything that's pleasant. I
Mm-hmm.
have a picture of one of my daughters and her fiance, and that just brings me a lot of joy. So I love looking at that picture. I have an orchid that's got all these beautiful colors in it, and just
Mm-hmm.
taking a moment and looking at your orchid for a minute. Even if you zone out, it's signaling to your nervous system that even though all of this stuff is going on in this moment, I am safe.
Yes.
And that is key, because when people have been betrayed and going through a difficult time, they don't feel safe because there's so much uncertainty on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate what you said in this moment because so much is in our head and it's in the
Yeah.
future or it's
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
And I do not want to minimize betrayal or anything else, but truly, right now, listening to this, my guess is you are okay.
Yeah.
You are sitting somewhere, you are walking somewhere, you are driving somewhere, you are probably okay.
Yeah.
And when you're focusing on us and you're listening, this can be regulating because
Yeah.
you're out of the future and you're out of the past.
Yeah. And in this moment, you are okay. Even if you're driving to mediation, even if you're driving to, um, you know,
Yeah.
drop your kids off at your exes or soon to be exes, or whatever the situation is, in this moment, you are okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is key, because the more, and that brings us down to our ventral vagal parasympathetic. That's when we can feel presence. We can be present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that, again, is a practice.
It is. And again, why do we want to be present? Well, we can make better decisions. We
Right.
feel better. And sometimes there's a lot of fancy words. You know what I mean? And sometimes
Yeah.
I think it can be as simple as, do I really feel okay right now? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you want to
Do
feel
I?
okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, our everybody's goal, right?
Yeah.
Is like, we want to feel okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's easy.
Even though everything's burning down around me.
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between healthy compartmentalization and like unhealthy compartmentalization. Because, like you
Okay.
were talking to, whether it's aging parents or filling out divorce paperwork, or you or you're having a meeting with your spouse and you're trying to work things through, there are times where here are the 5 things I got to do. I got to buckle down and do them. What, when is that healthy and when is it not healthy?
Yeah. So it's not healthy um, it's 10 o'clock at night and you're still doing shit because you don't feel like you can go to sleep or you can't sleep, right? If you're really struggling to sleeping, that's a sign that you are chronically dysregulated or chronic stress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I lived that way for many years, especially, when the last 5.5 years of my marriage, I lived that way. And, it was like my mom was on again, off of a hospice too. I mean, it was just, and, throw some other crazy, brother stuff in there,
Right.
drug addict brother, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was fun stuff. So did I answer your question or,
Yeah, just how can listeners know like I'm just going through a tough time. Like I'm just going through it, but I'm doing okay versus I'm going through it and I'm killing myself and I'm not going to come out of this okay. Because like you, I went through some really tough stuff and
yeah,
before the infidelity and I ended up with adrenal fatigue and I didn't realize I was burning myself out versus now I'm going through some really tough stuff now and I'm still doing it healthily and I'm
yeah.
returning home to my body and
Right. Right. Because you're doing it in a more regulated state and
hmm
you're taking care of yourself. If you say yes when you really feel in your body you want to say no,
hmm
that's a sign. Um, you're not putting your needs first, which is people pleasing, it's appeasement. We call it in somatic experiencing the fawn response, because it's a learned pattern, learned behavior that oftentimes we learned in. So, it's really tuning in before you say yes or before you take something else on, or you just say to your ex, I'll just do it, or I'll just take it, or I'll figure this out. They're manipulating you, and when you can't set a healthy boundary, that's a sign that you are going to go into overwhelm if you're not already there,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and those are hard things to do, especially if you haven't been doing them all along. So be
Mm.
kind to yourself and be gentle with yourself. But again, like the more that you can just give yourself some small pockets at the beginning. And here's the other thing too that I will say from a somatic place is I wouldn't recommend doing deeper trauma healing while you're going through this. Like you want to do the nervous system regulation stuff because really with somatic experiencing there's two categories in my mind. We regulate the nervous system so then once the nervous system is regulated we can go deeper into the healing of the trauma that happened.
Yes.
Right. And so the more that you can learn through the chaotic period that you're going through to take these small opportunities to regulate your nervous system, the better off you're going to come out on the other end. And
Mhm.
like you said, you're going to make better decisions because your prefrontal cortex is on. Your prefrontal cortex is not working properly when you're in a heightened state of stress or dysregulated.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really glad that you said that because I know for me and for so many people, we want this fixed. We want it done now. And it's like, I'm just going to get this part done so I can feel better. I'm going to get this part done so I can feel
Yeah.
better. And we can't rush it. And the more that we try to rush it, the more
Yeah.
dysregulated we become, which is the
Yeah.
irony of it.
Right.
Yeah. And taking breaks, I want to speak to that a little bit because a lot of people listening are trying to work things out with our partner or trying to
Okay.
figure out if they want to work things out with our partner.
Yeah.
They're trying to come up with a decision, and you can't just lean into that. I know when my
No.
partner and I were trying to figure this out, we would work really hard and then we'd hit that I'm totally overwhelmed. I can't do this.
Yeah. And that is really important. That's a great example because even when you're in that state, it's okay to take breaks. It's
Yeah.
okay to say, you know what, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, or I'm getting a little triggered, or I'm getting a little upset or frustrated. I don't want to say something that I'm going to regret. So, can we take a break right now? That is honoring your nervous system. That's honoring what's happening in you. So then you can come back in a more grounded, centered place. So
Hmm.
that way, then you can, which is ventral vagal, which then you can make better decisions for yourself
Yeah.
and your family.
Exactly. So say that to other people. And then also, if other people say that to you, how can you honor that too and not be like,
Yeah,
but we're just gonna finish this. But I want to know this.
right,
But you got to answer this.
right, right. Because when you need that answer right now, that means that your nervous system is a heightened state, and I get it, you're looking for safety, you're looking for that security from your partner.
Hmm.
But we have to then go in, and that's an opportunity. It's like, okay, where am I feeling this frustration or this panic that I need an answer now?
Yes.
Can you stay with that sensation? Can you give your partner the time and space and let me go sit with that? Because
Hmm.
if we can sit with that emotion and feel the sensations, 9 times out of 10, that will dissipate. And what that does is it completes that fight, flight response that your body is in that moment.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you came back to that because you had mentioned that earlier that we are not used to completing that cycle and completing that response. And I'd like you to say more about that because it is a cycle that does need completion. And people might be saying, what do you mean completion? What do you mean by that?
So, um, yeah, like I talked about this earlier, but our nervous system obviously will go up into our sympathetic. And so let's take an example of an easy example. I think explaining it helps. So Laura, you and I are in the same house, and you come around the corner, and I don't know that you're there, and you surprise me, and I'm shocked. I'm like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
didn't know you were there.
Yeah.
Right. And then as you're looking at my body, what's happening? I'm tightening I'm pulling back, I'm tightening, my shoulders are scrunched up, my chest feels activation, I'm feeling a constriction there, and I'm like, oh my God, okay, it's just Laura, I'm safe. And allowing that sensation, staying with that feeling instead of just going on, oh my God, I got to get on another call. I'm like, no, I'm just going to give myself a minute and allow that energy that I'm feeling, this heightened state of energy that's in my body
Hmm.
that scared me. I'm just going to sit with it and notice what's happening with it. So that is completing the threat response. Animals do this in the wild. Animals
Hmm.
know how to do it. If you've ever seen your dog shake, like get up and they shake,
Yes.
that's them either bringing on more activation or shaking off activation,
Yeah.
right? If you've ever seen a lion trying to attack a gazelle or some animal, what do? They play dead, right?
Hmm.
Let's say that they get away. They wake up, they look around, they orient to their space, which
Yeah.
is what we talked about earlier. They shake it off
Hmm. Hmm.
and then they run. And
Yeah.
they get away because animals do not experience trauma because they know how to complete that response. We as humans have not been taught that.
Yeah.
And that's so much of Peter Levine's training as he was watching animals in the wild and how they do this and brought a lot of that along with, taking our current physiology and ancient um, ways of healing and neurobiological processes to teach people how to do this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to tell a story because I think it brings together some of that. It's kind of rattlesnake season here in Colorado right now. There's a
Uh-huh.
lot of rattlesnakes crossing the trails, and my son had seen a rattlesnake. My dad, my other son, had seen a rattlesnake. Like snakes are kind of on my mind. So we were out hiking last weekend, and
Uh-huh.
my son and his fiance were in front of us. And he turns around, he's like, stay back. And it was just a gardener snake and it slithered across the trail, but he spins, he does stay back, and he puts his
Yeah.
flashlight on the snake. And I do this, ah! And I
Yeah.
did everything that he did. My body, everything jerks up. I scream. And then we see that it's a gardener snake. It slithers away. But I was doing like this, whoo, and
Yeah.
I'm like doing the icks and I'm like dancing around. Blah, 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 blah. And it was funny because I thought I'm dancing around and being all weird and getting it out because I'm with people that I love and that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
When I'm like, oh, oh, oh. And it was funny because I was thinking if I was hiking with somebody I didn't know very well or who kind of intimidated me, how I would want to pull that in and be like, oh, wow, that startles me. But that
Yeah.
energy would have been inside.
Yeah. And you wouldn't have been able to you wouldn't have been able to complete that fight
Yeah.
flight response that you were experiencing in that moment. That's
Yeah.
a beautiful example.
Yeah. And just how many ways has that been trained out, Whether
Yeah.
we're sitting in a mediation and we want to stand up and go, "Wah!" But we don't do it because it's not socially acceptable.
Right. But what you can do, and I recommend people do, because I did this during my mediation, I got up and I excused myself and I went to the bathroom.
Yes.
And you give yourself as much time as you need in there. This was before I even knew about somatic experiencing, but I had enough bodily awareness of like, I need to remove myself right now because
Hmm.
my ex was very spiteful, unfortunately. And so I mean, it wasn't the hardest divorce, but it wasn't the easiest either,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
exactly.
is why I fell sick.
Exactly. Exactly. But like that, you don't have, it's great if you can do it in the moment, but if you can get into your car and on the steering wheel,
Yeah,
if you can go to the bathroom and jump up and down, if you like, there's so many different things that you can do. And what I want to say to listeners, and you can tell me if you think this is incorrect, but I feel like there's really no wrong way to do it. There are some tips and techniques that are more effective, but if you're in the moment and on the fly, what does your body want to do? Do that.
exactly. Right. But there is a wrong way to do it, and that is take it out on other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that's where I think and I do it too. It's like, you get pissed and you're like, they're such an asshole. They're da, da, da. Sorry if I'm cussing too much on your podcast, but um, but even if you're in a meeting, you can push against the table or push against the desk and then let go
Mhm.
and notice the sensations. That helps to release what we call healthy anger. Push underneath the desk and back. Push your feet into the floor and
Yeah.
then release and notice. But the key is to notice the sensations because sensations are the language of the nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah. Notice these sensations. I think that is the biggest takeaway for all of this.
Yeah.
Notice it. And
Yeah.
how often do we not notice? What are the 10 sensations you had yesterday? Who could answer that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I probably could because
Because you
I'm
know it.
always right.
Yeah.
but
But yeah, when we're
but
sober,
yes,
yeah.
even if you can only identify two,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
I love
good.
that. Yeah, I love that. Well, where else can people find you and learn more about you and download your somatic processing? Where can they?
Yeah, thank you. So my website is Laurie E. James, Laurie, middle initial E, James.com. I'm also on Instagram at Laurie.James. And I have a podcast also, which you're a guest on, and we're going to be dropping these really close to each other. So listen to both so you get
Yeah,
both sides of it. And my podcast is Confessions of a Free Bird, found on all the outlets that you get your podcasts at.
yeah,
And I'll send you the link for my free guide if anybody wants to download it.
yeah, absolutely. And
So
same
you
thing.
can throw it in the show notes.
Yeah, everything's in the show notes. And what I also want to say to you listeners, whether you're like, yeah, I know all of this, or whether this is the first time you've heard any of this and you're going, polydorsal vagal nerve, what?
Yeah.
You're in the right place.
Yeah.
This is awareness. We're all starting somewhere. And it's not only just you, like the science of somatic experiencing, somatic processing. it's it's a relatively new field, even though it's something that humans have known since humans were humans.
Yeah.
So
It's
you're not behind. You're
well,
not.
and here, and I'll bring it full circle, is if you can't remember anything from today, take a few minutes each day to experience what's happening in your body. As simple as that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of tingling. I have a lot of energy that flows. I constantly am feeling tingling. And before I got on the podcast, I felt, I always get just a little nervous before I record. So I get a little tightness and I just sat with it because the more that we can just observe what's happening in the body without making sense of it or trying to make sense of what's happening, that's when it dissipates.
Mm.
And that's when we complete that response that we're feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
Just experience the body.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just don't judge it. Just feel it and see what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lori. I think this was really useful
Yeah.
for everybody. Just dipping your toes in, feel the body,
Yeah.
understand what it means and how to feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. So thank you for having me. It was a joy to have this conversation with you, and I look forward to staying connected with you.
Yeah, likewise. Listeners, do exactly what Lori said. Drop in, just feel your body and notice. And you know what? Even if you're like, this feels icky, that's okay. Just notice it. That's all
Yeah.
part of the process.
Feel the ickiness.
Yeah, it's all good. Have an amazing week and always remember to flaunt exactly who you are because who you are is always more than enough.